Hi, this is Joe again with another review. And I was saying, in this video I'm going to finally end my review of every single Star Trek television series. This of course concludes with the fifth and final Star Trek show, which was originally called Enterprise. And then a couple of episodes into the third season they put a Star Trek moniker on it. So it was renamed Star Trek Enterprise. Originally called Enterprise, which is the original name. And other than the original series, the original Star Trek series, this was the only one that was under 100 episodes. They only made like 98 shows in this, and it was almost canceled like about 2 years into it because it got extremely low ratings. And the show aired on the UPN network from 2001 to 2005. It was really one of the last shows of the UPN network before it was renamed Might Network Television. And of course, this show is also one of the forgotten Star Trek shows because at that time the show was here, people getting tired of the Star Trek universe, because at that time the Star Wars prequels were in the middle of the Star Wars prequels at that time, because Episode 2 didn't even come out yet, Attack of the Clones. So people were more interested with the Star Wars prequels than they were another Star Trek show. And of course, also at that time you had the towards the end of Star Trek Voyager. It was about a year away from ending. And also people were getting tired of Star Trek, especially the television series and Next Generation films were bombing out the box office. So I guess because of that, it was affecting the television shows in a way, and people started losing interest in it. I mean, it happens with any franchise that's been built, like Paramount has been built in Star Trek for all these years. And of course, with this show, it has a very famous actor from another previous science fiction show as the captain of the show, and it was Scott Bakula, playing Captain Jonathan Archer. And of course, it came out with Quantum Leap, and this was I think his first television series after that. So of course people had interest, because especially fans of Quantum Leap fans tuned in to watch this show for Scott Bakula. But this show was not that good. I mean, they had some interesting elements in it, but as a show, it lacked the quality. Like the humor. The problem they had with the spin-offs was the fact that they had very low interest in humor, very low, chemistry with the actors, unlike in the original series. And they did, well, at least the original series had humor, and they tried to force humor in the Next Generation show, but this one had nothing. It did have a lot of action, which I like, from a Star Trek series. But, eventually people says, like this again, or this type of thing again, and all kind of crazy bullshit stuff that was going on. But one thing that this show had, which not too many the other Star Trek shows really focused on, and that was the sex appeal. This show definitely had sex appeal. Starting with Jolene Balak, who played Topol, who was the Vulcan's officer liaison for the Enterprise, and of course you also had Linda Park, who played the communications officer, a translator. But they had the universal translator there, so they had to have an officer on the ship to translate stuff. Those two were smoking hot women on the show. I mean, there's no doubt about it. These two women were smoking hot. But other than that, the chemistry between the actors was just not there. Not there at all. But they did have some interesting stuff in there. Like you had the time paradox war was going on. Particularly in the first 2 years, you had a lot of time paradox stuff. Then after a while, people got tired. It says that people got tired of the same rehashing of stuff. It was already established like crazy in the other series. because the last episode of the Next Generation did do a time paradox type storyline for the final episode of the Next Generation. So it says, oh, again, another time paradox thing, or you had another thing with the Klingons. And this time the Klingons looked like the Klingons from the movie series and the other television shows, with the ridges on their foreheads and stuff. And they did not look like the humans with the beard, with the goatees, like in the original television show. Because originally, during the course of the Star Trek universe, they evolved to look like that with the ridges on the forehead and stuff. And they went back to the ridges for Star Trek Enterprise, and that kind of does, messed it up. It's like, hey, they're supposed to look like humans instead, with the ridges and the big nose and the bigger noses and stuff like that. But they just did their own spin on that stuff, and they did go back to looking more like humans. And over the course of the series, when they had the Klingons on again. But on this show, which kind of like ticked a lot of fans off, was really the final episode. Before I get into the final episode, there was another thing that a lot of people may stink over, and that was you had the Borg. You actually had the Borg on the series, and which actually went to Earth in one particular episode. I forgot what the title of the episode was. There was one particular episode where you had the Borg in it, and they sent a message to the home world or the universe, which is like about 75 light years away, which was true from the Next Generation series. But when Q sent them to the area where the Borg were, and it's always going to take them like 75 years to get the message, or 75 years, which would be the timeline for the Next Generation crew. Also, oh no, we don't even worry about them anymore. Bullshit. So you had all that stuff, and of course the last episodes of the series was really what pissed a lot of fans off. Because they pointed, now you had, like, at the end of the series, now you had Captain Micah and Counselor Troy, looking at a video on the holodeck, or a recreation of the holodeck of what happened with Captain Archer. And the rest of the thing is like a computer simulation of what happened with Captain Archer. And replaying what happened on the last adventure of the original Enterprise, the original Enterprise crew. And it was like, it's like you have to really roll your eyes over this stuff. I mean, you have to bring back two characters from the first prequel for the last episode of the last prequel, or the last spin-off. I mean, it was really, really, ridiculous. But one thing you did have is, like I said earlier, you had a lot of sex appeal. Jolene Baylock, and you see a lot of times on underwear, or lack of underwear. The same thing with Linda Park's character, and like I said, both of them were smoking hot women. And that was about it. The only thing good is to see those two shows and to see Scott Bakula in another series after Quantum Leap. But for the most part, I mean, this series was, it was good. I mean, it was watchable, but it wasn't. It didn't have the huge fan following as the previous series. Like I said earlier, people were just getting tired of Star Trek at that time, and of course, Star Trek still hasn't gone, really big since like the 70s or the early 80s. Because I guess maybe because that generation grew up, I guess, and still wearing the Star Trek outfits and the Vulcaneers and going live long and prosper and the hand salutes and stuff. And so that I guess it's because people just got tired of it. And eventually people are going to get tired of Star Wars too, and people won't get dressed up in the Star Wars outfits either. But people just got tired, and fortunately, like I said earlier, the Star Enterprise was like the last Star Trek television series. And it's really, really sad that the series of the franchise, Star Trek franchise, was really dead and buried until the J.J. Abrams reboot movie came out in 2009. But since 2005, it is now 12 years later, there has never been another Star Trek television series ever that ever came out. Originally, you're supposed to do like either a TV series or a movie based on Starfleet Academy, which was what Star Trek 6 was supposed to be. And they did kind of play with that in the first reboot movie that came out in 2009. But for the most part, like I said, they haven't done anything with this series as a franchise since then, which is really a shame. I mean, it really is. I mean, the series is over 50 years old, and fortunately, a lot of the original cast have died. Most notably, of course, most recently, Mr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy died. I mean, at least have something. I mean, at least have a franchise for the 50th anniversary. A year ago was the 50th anniversary. At least have something for the Star Trek fans who've been following the series for like 50 years, or at least grew up watching the reruns like I did. But to end on such a low note with Enterprise, it was really an extreme low note, and I wish they could have done better with this series. It was interesting. I did have a prequel to the very first Enterprise spaceship. Was an interesting premise, but unfortunately, it died a very, very quick death. And like I said, after the first year and a half, was almost canceled. And it was really sad that the show wasn't really as good as it should have been. So that's my review of Star Trek Enterprise. Please click on the video, please rate it. Feel free to comment on it. Please subscribe to my channel. Please forward this video onto your Facebook pages. You can watch all my videos and all on my YouTube channel at rowdyc.com. There's over WDY.com. The homepage of our reviewer, Chris Lee Moore. And please check out all of his videos and all of his content on his website. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.